Hey everyone, and I'm here again with our special guest from Seattle, Kendra Long, a leading personal injury attorney who helps women that have been hurt or injured get justice and the support they deserve. And today we're talking about a big question women have after being injured in an accident, and that's how long will my personal injury case take? So good to have you on, Kendra.
Great, thanks for having me.
All right. Now, before we get started, if you've had an accident or you just need some questions answered right now, just go to injuredwomen.com. That's injuredwomen.com, and you'll get a free assessment, some immediate next steps, and hopefully some much needed peace of mind. So to kick off, Kendra, let's just talk about the timeline of a personal injury case so people can get some perspective and things involved that would really affect that so our listeners can understand exactly what's involved. So let's just begin with, I think you were saying to me that each case really has its own timeline. So let's just talk about that to start with.
So each case it has its own timeline, and that is because everybody's injuries are different. The rate that you heal is different, the stressors on your body in healing are different. So every case has its own timeline. The injuries you suffer are unique, even if the accident was very similar.
Yeah. Okay. Just to come in there. So really, to sum it up though, the case is going to take as long as that person takes to heal from their injuries, yes?
Absolutely. So until you get better, until you have reached 100% of your pre-injury state, or until a doctor has told you, hey, you're not going to get any better, you've reached what's known as maximum medical improvement. Until it is not good to settle your case. It is not good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that in other episodes, and obviously a big worry, and the previous episode we did was about, getting bills paid. So I think in terms of medical treatment and paying bills, our listeners should be rest assured that if you are dealing with a personal injury case, there are many ways, and you can listen to some other episodes about this to get the bills paid. But as Kendra says, getting that full amount of treatment's key to getting the proper level of compensation. Now, let's just talk about after medical treatment. Just talk about that for a bit.
So once you've wrapped up with medical treatment, the first thing I would do is go and collect all of your medical records. So I would contact the doctor's offices, every provider that you've seen, and get your full medical records. This is more than just what you see on your online medical portal. They're really extensive. They have a lot of notes.
Yeah.
Really great. So I get all of those records.
Okay. So just on that, but that's not the first time somebody's working with you. You're working with them right at the start usually, aren't you?
Absolutely. So people come in while they're initiating treatment, and go through that process together. They're getting the treatment they need. Sometimes they have questions about who's paying this bill or that bill.
Yeah.
I help sort that out. But usually in the early stages, my job's kind of quiet because they're just doing what they need to get better.
Okay. All right. And then you talked about once treatment's finished, creating something called a demand letter.
Yeah. So once treatment's wrapped up, I've gathered all the medical bills. I then prepare what's called a demand letter. And then all of the medical treatment that you've had, all the diagnosis that you've had, it summarizes how this has impacted your life. And this is where so important to work with the client to get a true story of how this is impacting their life in a day-to-day, very personal way. I look at any lost wages, any out-of-pocket expenses that they've had. So if you've had to hire someone to come in and help take care of the kids or do your housework, or if you're spending money driving back and forth to the doctor's office. So that's all things that I include in there because it's compensation that you're entitled to.
And I think a woman's story, I mean, this is why you help a lot of women, is contextually quite different to most men's story because of some of the responsibilities they have day to day compared to their partner, for example, if they have one.
Yeah, absolutely. Women are often caregivers, so perhaps they're caring for their own children, disabled siblings, elderly parents, sick parents. They're caring for friends and family. Their stories, they just are doing a lot. So they're often working and then doing everything else at the end of the day. Women do a lot of unpaid labor that once they're injured, they realize, wow, I can't keep doing all this. Like, I can't make it through the day. I can't do everything I did before. And it makes it really, really challenging to slow down because your body has to heal.
Yeah. And it's not just the money, really, is it, when it comes to their story? It's how their life is really changed compared to, I mean, not every woman is at home, you know, they're working, but they've also got duties that maybe a man isn't fulfilling that they struggle with now.
Yeah. When women call me, they're usually calling me not because they're in so much pain or because they're worried about themselves. They're calling because they're finally fed up because they've had to miss their kid's birthday party, or they're no longer able to help their elderly parent move around in the house without significant pain. It's the effect of their injury on others' lives that make them call me.
Yeah. Yes, it's really interesting. So just taking it one step further. So once we've dealt with this demand letter, we've submitted that. I think you mentioned it typically 6 to 8 weeks to get the records and create the letter. And then there's a 30-day review window. You were talking to me about this negotiated settlement phase.
Yes. So after the insurance companies received our demand letter, they will review it.
Yeah.
Run it through a computer system to like pop out a number that their computer says is reasonable. And we start negotiating back and forth. And it usually takes a week or 10 days to get to what is their top offer. And when we have what their top offer is, what they're willing to pay, my client and I can make a decision about whether they're willing to accept that number or it would be better for them to file a lawsuit and proceed from just having a claim to having a litigated case. And so that happens pretty, in that 6 to 8 week timeline. But most cases are settled. Almost all of them get settled. I'd say maybe 5% of them actually proceed to like full litigation. Like they settle. Rest assured that usually happens.
Okay. All right. So just to lay it out there, let's just from a start to finish timeline, just walk people through it step by step so they can get a good overview of what a timeline looks like for an injury case they may be involved with.
So let's say that you get into an accident on New Year's Day. It's a rear end collision, nothing too crazy. You maybe go to urgent care the next day. No hospital. Have a pretty reasonable course of care, 6 or 7 months where you're getting treatment for soft tissue injuries. Then you're finished, you feel better, you're 100%, yay, wonderful, so happy. Like your medical records, that's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. I put together a demand letter, another, week or two. We then wait for the insurance company for another month. We then negotiate our settlement. When you can expect funds in your own pocket, if you have a successful settlement, is about Halloween. So I tell people, even in a simple, uncomplicated case, if you get injured on New Year's Day, you're not going to see any recovery until about Halloween.
Okay. But I mean, I know that doesn't sound quick to some people, but that's reasonably speedy in my mind for going through if the treatment lasts 6 to 7 months.
Yeah. People feel like it seems like a long time when you're going through it. It seems like a really long time to be getting treatment because most people have never had to have, long-term treatment for something. But you have to make sure you're 100% better. Like if you're not 100% better and we settle your case, we can't go back later and get more medical treatment paid for. We can't go get more damages paid for. So we have to know 100%. And sometimes we even wait a month after you finish treatment before we take any more action, because we just want to make sure that nothing else flares back up, like that it is fully 100% resolved. But it's very case dependent, some people treat for months and that's just what's necessary for their injuries.
So just for our listeners' sake, the bottom line is the more serious an injury, the longer the case is going to play out, right?
Typically, yes. I mean, sometimes injuries are very serious, but one surgery fixes it. So they're better 8 later. Or sometimes, in the case of wrongful death, like the person is not here anymore. So you're able to take steps a little faster. But for most people's cases, the more severe the injury, I think that's a good rule of thumb.
All right, brilliant. All right, great advice. And I know we covered it in another episode. While this period of, let's say, 9 months is playing out, people will be worried about getting bills paid. So let's just allude to that just quickly while we're on this episode. So we can make sure bills are paid if someone's working with someone like you during that period?
Yeah, so people can get bills paid through their own health insurance, subject to their co-pays, deductibles, and limitations of their insurance. They can get bills paid through what's known as personal injury protection, which is an optional layer of coverage on your own auto insurance. Sometimes get bills paid if it's like a commercial establishment through a med pay provision that says that they'll pay a certain amount regardless of them accepting fault. So those are a few ways to do it. Some doctors will treat on liens if you have an attorney that's representing you so that they know that they're going to get their money back when your case is finished. So it's options to get them paid, and working with an attorney, like when your bills, if they get sent or threatened to be sent to collections, that's something that we can kind of take action on and work with the providers to make sure that that doesn't happen and that your credit's not affected.
Okay, that's really great advice. Look, Kendra, thanks for coming on today. And for everybody listening to this, if you've got questions from today's episode, if you just go to injuredwomen.com, that's injuredwomen.com, you'll get a free case assessment and you'll be able to get a plan of action and some immediate next steps that I think will make you feel a whole lot better. Look, Kendra, we'll have you back on soon and I'll speak to you then.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Cheers.